Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another session of uh, questions and queries related to graphology. Let's see what we shall have today, what fun we can have today, what questions we can have today, and hopefully, I'm able to answer to the questions that come up. Okay, so we have a few questions piled up over here, so let's get on with the flow. The first question which I've seen over here, very interesting, is why do some people uh, write a letter structure in a manipulated manner? What happens in the mindset? Let's take, for example, your letter N looks like letter U, letter M looks like W, letter H looks like LI. So, any letter structure that does not look like what it's supposed to look means that that thought pattern is not agreeable to the mind and it is twisted and manipulated in the thought process. Let me give you an example. Let's say you write the letter C. A C is a simple formation like that. And somehow, when you connect your letter C starts to look like letter E. Now, when the C looks like letter E, then the word that is going to come up is going to change. So let's take for example, if you write the word center, Center. So the letter C, if it looks like E, it will be pronounced as inter. So you wanted to say center, but when it came out from your body, it became something else. This is where the C topic, the topic and the traits of the letter C are not somehow agreeable to the mind and it wants to think about something else instead of a letter C. So now you know that on my YouTube channel I've published the videos of letters C and E. So you can go to the letter C video, observe what it means. It means something about outside comfort zone, social environment. Okay. And E is about culture. So when the person writes a C that looks like letter E, this means that when he is supposed to think about something social, something outside the comfort zone, he is replacing that thought with cultural thoughts. Okay, means that he wants the aspect of culture to be a part of the social aspect, which may not be appropriate depending on certain situations. Let's say, for example, you've been invited for a wedding. Okay, now every culture has its own unique way of having their wedding. The Christian wedding, the Hindu wedding, the Muslim wedding, the Buddhist. There's so many ways that a wedding can happen. Now, what happens is that if you have a friend who has got this kind of a problem where his C looks like letter E, what will happen is that he'll go to the wedding and instead of enjoying the experience of the wedding, he will try to compare his cultural wedding with the thing which is happening in front of him, and that makes him judgmental, that makes him feel this is not good, that is okay, and he keeps on talking in terms of judgments. Now maybe it's a new experience for him, but instead of learning from the experience he prefers to judge it. Some people who should just enjoy the social environment, hang out, be with people, have a good time, enjoy the event. These people will only do that if it is culturally appropriate according to them. So sometimes you can find that these people will be annoyingly orthodox, annoyingly culturally inclined when there's no requirement. Okay. Now, culture doesn't mean only religious culture. It could be even work culture. It could be even fitness culture. It could be a home culture. Let's say let's say you're an air hostess in a prestigious airline, and you got this problem in your writing. Now what will happen is that your work culture will slightly get into your daily life culture, so where you expect everybody to be polite and nice to you, which is not going to be easy for you to have in reality. Okay, so this is the this is the thing. If a letter stops looking like what it's supposed to look, then it clearly shows that the nature of the thought pattern or the nature of this person's intention is not clear, and the meaning of that entire thought changes. Okay, so now next question over here is, uh, how much does a logo affect the success of a business? Now remember, I'm a graphologist. I do design logos, but my experience is very limited. But what I've experienced so far, like I've designed about 90 logos up to date. I'm sure people with much more experience will give you better answers, but a logo performs that activity or represents you and your company and your business in the best possible way, so that it acts like an attractive aspect of your business. It should represent you, it should represent your business in the correct way, and a good logo can make a very big difference between uh, a positive vibe with the customer or a negative reluctance from the customer. That's why companies spend a lot of time contemplating what is the correct logo. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, since the last 10 years, the logos of companies have been becoming very simple and straightforward, and that's much appreciated also. Okay, so logo is a very important aspect of a business. If you have a business that doesn't have a logo, you can still be successful, but then what happens? To create an identity, to create a trust or a brand would be difficult without a logo. Okay, all right, so let's get some other question here. uh, all right, so we have got a question here: how to get better at micro analysis. So you have to, ideally I would say, come practice with me. I'll show you how we can get micro analysis for you better. But if you want to practice on your own, use multiple traits while you're analyzing a sample. When you're about to say a point, don't say a sentence or a point of observation because you observed one thing only. Observe couple of things, 2 to 3 traits, stitch them up, make a story, make a understanding in your mind what it means to have this combination, and then when you express it, your analysis will become better. Okay, whether it's micro or macro, any level of graphology, combining traits tends to make analysis interesting and always unpredictable, which is uh, quite refreshing for the graphologist also. So just practice on a daily basis, minimum 5 samples, and do at least 3 letters at a time for a combination of analysis. Okay. All right. So another question here: how long does graphotherapy take for it to show results? Now, um, graphotherapy is like a psychological treatment. The time period that is expected for consistent practice is within a month. Within a month, you should see visible change in your attitude, mental, emotional, physical state of being, and the overall motivation of the person increases. If you are inconsistent, then of course, no amount of time can be predicted for when you reach the targeted thing. And Remember, graphotherapy is to make you meet a better version of yourself. Tomorrow, if let's say you take graphotherapy from me and you become better, that person who becomes better 3 months down the line, 2 months down the line, 6 months down the line, depending on the practice, you think the person you are today and the person you are 6 months later is genetically different? The body is not going to be much different. Yes, there's going to be different body language, there's going to be slightly different metabolism, different stress levels, different joy levels. So there's slight changes, but as a whole, the person is still mostly the same. Only his outlook to life changes, and that ultimately leads to better quality of life. But then this means that the better version of him, which is 6 months later, was already there inside him. Graphotherapy gives you the activities which will trigger that better version of you out of you. Okay, so that's the thing. Now, next question is how to be present in the moment. It's not easy because the world is very entertaining. The reason why most of the times we choose to close our eyes for being present in the moment is so that we can avoid distraction. But then there are different organs like the skin can feel the temperature of the air around you or a breeze. The ears can hear sounds. The smell can understand uh, scents around you. So if you really want mindfulness, let the sense organs do what you do, but always keep a corner of your mind. Like there should be a small room. Like imagine this: if this is your house, mentally have an image of a small room somewhere in your brain, and once you go into that room, you're just there. Whatever is happening, whether you're writing something or you're listening to this video or you're driving somewhere, that small place should be peace of mind. I'm not telling you to go to sleep. Don't do that. If you're driving, you'll be in trouble. But it should be that your senses are aware. If they're doing their stuff, they're taking care of you, they're getting things done. But there's always a small room, the quiet room, the silent room, which you can escape to. So if somebody is giving you a hard time, somebody is unnecessarily arguing with you, being rude, being nasty, being selfish, and just giving you a bad day. If you can escape to the room in your mind while the person is giving you a hard time, not only will your response to this person be more mature, but you can avoid a lot of conflict. You can avoid a lot of unnecessary issues which otherwise your ego would have pushed you towards. Okay. So what you can do is that think of a tiny cubicle, you could say, a small room inside your head somewhere, and mentally escape into that room and consider yourself peaceful and in the moment. I'm sure it will work for you. Okay. Breathing exercises are very important. Focusing on the breathing can be a very good way. I mean, obviously, many gurus and meditation masters have said this. Anybody who wants to get mastery of anything, it's all about the breathing pattern. Okay. Now, next is how to improve emotional intelligence. Wow, this is a question which I would like to receive an answer to because I'm going through certain practices which improves my emotional awareness, not intelligence. I'm not sure what emotional intelligence is because uh, emotion, in my perspective, is better to observe rather than ponder about because once you observe it, then you can understand its nature. But if you constantly think about an emotion and generally overthink it, it becomes a bit of a headache. You see, the mind is very limited in its capacity to think, but the emotions are vastly more powerful than the thoughts of the mind. Okay, so if you have an emotion and you think about it, it's going to make you a bit confused. Yes, for some time you might want to ponder about it, but then don't think about it too much. So Instead of saying how to improve emotional intelligence, I would say try to work on emotional awareness. So if you're more aware of how you feel or how people around you feel, or why is it that suddenly you felt in a certain way, that awareness will lead to better experience of life. So how to get that done? That it's quite simple. Just be closer to nature. The more closer you are to nature, the easier it is for you to improve your emotional awareness. Walk sometimes on barefoot on mud and soil and grass. Play with children. Play with animals. I mean, pet animals. Be near a tree for some time. Have a couple of. Have you heard of wheatgrass? Have a few strands of wheatgrass. Grow wheatgrass in your home. Take out a few strands and eat it. Just use. Just be close to nature. Nature will show you how to be emotionally aware. Okay. Next one. Uh, any exercises to sharpen observation? Observation to sharpen. The best way you can improve observation or sharpen observation is to have patience. Generally, what happens is that when you get a hunting sample and you're excited to say something, and in the other person looking at you, now is he going to say something? Now is he going to say something? So tell the person, please give me a minute or two. I would like to observe before I say something. And take your own sweet time. You don't have to observe everything. Observe three letters. Observe three traits in the writing. Stitch a story in your mind comfortably. And even after 30 seconds, after a minute, after 2 minutes, start talking. Don't be in a hurry. If you're in a hurry, observation will never be good. Okay? Okay. So, so somebody asking, what about the nail polish on the small finger? Yes. Now, this is my little daughter's funny joke that if I put a nail polish on my finger, I will look funny. So it's okay. Somewhere I can be a joker for her. So it, in a way, answers the question previously. So, how to improve emotional awareness is by hanging out with children. So, I have a 5-year-old child who I play with every day, and she one day decided that I should have a yellow color nail polish on my finger. And once she got it done for me, then she started laughing and said, "You're very funny." So that's the way it goes. It's all right. Okay, next question. How to find out daydreamers in graphology? Well, if I knew graphology when I was in first, second, third, fourth standard, probably even till today, I do daydreaming. Daydreaming happens when you have consistent garlands, consistent middle zone. It can happen when sometimes you reach a perfect consistency of letter spacing. When you find a person who has weirdly accurate letter spacing for at least a couple of words, you know that that moment of time, the person has reached a sweet spot in his mind where he could have been writing and be daydreaming. So, daydreamers tend to have sometimes very good letter spacing. Of course, the whole sample may have letter spacing going not too good, but there'll be certain patches of words that look so neatly spaced out. So, observing spacing, okay, line spacing, word spacing, letter spacing, spacing between or inside the letters, space is going to be an important aspect to analyze if you want to find out daydreamers. So, what you do is that if you find a person or if you find a child daydreaming, once they finish daydreaming, give them a piece of paper, tell them to write a few sentences, and just take it away. Again, you find them daydreaming. Again, you go, tell them to write a few words and take it up. So once you do this for 10, 15 times, you got 10, 15 samples of a person who's just come out of a daydream. Then the trait will be more visible, easily visible. Okay. Now, if the daydreaming consists of old sorrows or bad memories or certain past regrets, then partially it's a choice that you need to stop making so that you can have a better quality daydreaming. Daydreaming is where you witness the mind like a movie. You're there in the daydream, but you're not participating in the daydream. You're just like a movie. It's like a movie playing in your mind. It can be triggered by a memory. It can be triggered by an emotion. It can be triggered by a situation. Now, if you choose to go towards old memories and sad memories, then you're going to get the difficulties. If you choose to go for positive memories, positive daydream, then that's to your benefit. Okay. So now next question. I hope I'm answering everybody's questions correctly. Today's topics are very interesting. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the questions that you ask. Okay. Next. Next question. Can graphology make a person less anxious and fearless and be more empowered and confident? Yes, certainly. Any psychological trait that you would like to improve, any mental state of being, any emotional state of being, and partially any physical state of being that if you want to improve, there is graphotherapy for each. So, if you would like to know more about how to reduce anxiety, fear, and confidence, then I would need to first see the handwriting sample because although I would like to give a general answer to everybody, then that becomes a 2 minute motivation. Then again, you go back to your own spot. But normally, what happens is that after we analyze the person's writing, then we know what could trigger them. So that becomes a motivation. On a overall basis, reduce the angles in your writing. The more there are angles, the more the anxiety and the fear. Where the angle should be there, you make sure the angle should be there. Like letter V, huh? Or sometimes the people write a small a small letter W with sharpness. Some places angles are appreciated, but otherwise, where angle is not required, don't put the angle. Okay, next one. How to get started with graphotherapy? So please connect with me if you'd like to get started with graphotherapy. I would be happy to guide you. First, I this is my procedure of how I do graphotherapy. I take your handwriting sample. I first talk to you about it, identify your strengths and weakness. Then you decide what is the targeted mindset or improvement you want. And accordingly, I send a PDF file with different activities which you start doing. Once these activities are done, then you practice every week, and every week I check your handwriting as a follow up. If you send the writing regularly, the follow up is done regularly, and over a period of time, you see the changes. So please connect with me after this video ends. Below the description, you will see below in the description box. You'll see my contact details. Please connect with me there. All right. Next question is wow. This is whole list of questions coming up. Thank you very much. All right. So where can you give the handwriting? So if you have a handwriting sample of yours which you'd like to get analyzed, please send it to my WhatsApp number. I'm writing it in the chat box here, and it will be there below the video also once it's done. Okay, I'm sure you got the number now. This is my WhatsApp number. You can send it to me anytime, and I'll be happy to analyze it for you. There are a few charges because I'll be along with handwriting analysis. I do suggest certain therapies which are like a uh, like a like a trial. You can have a demo of graphotherapy without going into it. And once you feel that the graphotherapy works, then you can go for the full-fledged module. Okay. So next is how much practice should one do for micrographology? So if you want to be a good graphologist, 5 samples a day is good enough. If you do more, then your skill becomes better. Okay. Okay. So for those who want to send the writing and they want to know the cost and the details, please connect with me. I'll personally send you the details because uh, what happens is that based on your location, based on your requirement, the fee structure varies. All right. Thank you. So next question is, what does it mean if the letter G looks like letter Y? Okay, so as we discussed around 20 minutes ago, when a letter structure changes its form to look like something else, what does that mean? That it's replacing the meaning. So if your letter G looks like letter Y, that means the property of letter Y is being replaced. No, wait a minute. The G looks like letter Y. Means your letter G is getting replaced in its form properties by the properties of letter Y. Okay. So letter G means how you handle money and physicality in a comfort zone. And letter Y is about how you handle money and physical aspects of life outside the comfort zone when in unfamiliar situations. Now, what happens is that if your G looks like letter Y, that means what should have been familiar to you has now become unfamiliar. This can possibly happen when you shift into a completely new city or a different culture, different country where all the rules, all the regulations, everything looks so different that everything feels out of the comfort zone. So, for initial period of time, the comfort zone is not as comfortable as you'd like it to be. But as you get used to the culture and all, you will ultimately reach a point where you'll be able to get your G correct. But remember, if your G looks like letter Y, that means you're uncomfortable where you should be comfortable. It means it could be a home, it could be a relationship, it could be a topic of study, career, maybe a food choice. Whatever is comfortable for you is no longer comfortable, especially when you have to spend money or do something physically with it. All right. So next question here is any indicators of ambiversion in graphology? Sorry, but ambiversion, it could be a possibility that we can have a clues about it, but my experience and my research in regards to this topic is not very strong, so I won't be able to answer you that. So if you have many people around you, or you have connects to people who are ambidextrous, sorry, ambiversion people, then you can get the handwriting samples and let's see if we can uh, do some study. Okay, next question. What does it indicate when someone retraces a very long Q stem all the way back up? So, the nature of the letter Q is to respond to physical and financial emergencies. Now, in an emergency, it's not easy to know what to do. Sometimes you're not trained. But if you're so well trained in life that even if an emergency comes, you know what to do. That is what this letter Q would indicate. So let's take for example, if your father is a firefighter, okay, he knows how to take out a fire, and he's at your home having a party and all that, and suddenly a fire breaks out in one of your rooms. So it's an emergency, but this person knows what to do, so he retraces back up and he knows what to do according to what he's trained to do. Okay. So it can be a compliment, but it can be very situational also. As it is, Q comes rarely, and then on top of that, when you have a retraced Q stem, this means that the person will be very good in situations which they are trained to, not necessarily a situation which they are not prepared for. And if it is too long, if it goes deeper, it means that the person is sometimes exaggerating what he defines as an emergency. So if it is healthy, like let's take for example, if this is my middle zone, if this is my middle zone, up to double the height of the middle zone is fine. So one, two, and three. So your middle zone is here, and the low zone can be around double the height of the middle zone. But if it goes too deep, then it's just exaggerating the whatever concept that letter represents. Okay. So another question: if we improve our handwriting, does our mental personality also improve? Yes. So if you change your handwriting, your body language changes. If your body language changes, then your outlook of life and your performance and just the way you want to get things done will change. Okay. So yes, handwriting can make a world of a difference to improve personality, mental personality, emotional personality. Okay. Thank you very much. I hope I've answered your question so far. Let's go to the next one. Mm, So, what does it show if a curve of the letter D does not touch the retrace? Now, see, I think I know what you're trying to say, but just for reference, do send me a picture of your query and I'll be able to answer it better. But for now, if a letter D does not touch the line, which it's supposed to touch, but it doesn't, means that the comfort zone of that letter structure is broken and no longer considered as a comfort zone. In fact, when a D opens up in an odd way, it actually looks like CL. So even if a slight gap is there between that curvature, it should be closed. Even if there's a slight gap, it suddenly starts to look like CL. So if you're writing the word dog and your D is not well made, it can look like clog because now it's not looking like a D, it looks like CL. Okay, you have to be careful about that. Okay, wow, this is amazing. Wonderful questions and so many questions in just half an hour. What a journey. Still another half an hour to go. All right. So we have a question here. Can breathing exercises be done with handwriting analysis or with handwriting? Yes, breathing is the activity which can be practiced with any activity what you do while cooking, while watching TV, while driving. Breathing exercises can be done anytime. So, how do you do breathing exercises with handwriting? So, we go back to my favorite letter O. The letter O has got a circular motion which represents cyclic processes in the body, which is breathing. So just go with the flow and let the hand take you and observe how the O changes according to the breathing. So what you have to do is start writing O, and as you go down, you inhale. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause, inhale, pause, exhale, pause. So four parts of breathing. You first inhale, then you wait for a couple of seconds, then you exhale, then again you wait for a couple of seconds, and again you inhale. So there are four aspects of breathing which are taken care of this by this O. So as you write the letter O, breathe with it. Breathe with the letter O. And then you'll see that you'll get a quite a good meditative mind. Okay. So next is how to increase the speed of analyzing. Have many people waiting for your analysis. The speed will automatically grow. I've had many experiences where I've been at events and initially one or two people come to the stall for analysis because half of the time people don't know what graphology is. But once they come to my desk or my stall where I've set up and I do analysis, then a whole crowd comes in. Now what happens is that if everybody is waiting for your analysis, then you have to be quick. So necessity is the mother of invention, and if you require to be speedy in your analysis, just get a huge crowd to come live online and let them wait for your analysis. Not in a I'm not talking in a mean way. I'm talking that waiting period should give you the excitement to analyze faster. Okay, tell the people that I've invited 10 people, so the 10th person is obviously going to get analysis after a while. But if you have the patience, please, it will help me to increase the speed of my analysis. I'm sure you'll find people around who will be happy to help. Okay. Now, next question is, can we get rid of toxic people with the help of graphology? Yes, graphology has a very good cleansing effect on a person's life. If you write in a certain way, or if you've been given graphotherapy which is correct for you, just by thinking or just by a certain body language, you will be able to repel people who you don't want. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens in your own family. Sometimes it happens within your friends that you are friends with that person, but you don't know how to tell that person that you don't want to be friends, and you just have to, out of formality, hang out. So if you have uh, if you have the requirement, then it will work out quite well. Okay, just a minute. Yeah. So I hope you all have understood the topic. Next one. What would it indicate when a signature has a lot of loops? More number of loops, more amount of complications and unnecessary creativity. Too many loops in a signature is sometimes just to highlight it or just give it a fancy effect. But unfortunately, what happens is that uh, too many loops just makes a mess of things. All right. Okay. What does it mean when there's a mostly straight J but a slight curve to the right instead of left? So instead of the J going to the left, it's gone the other way around. That means that the J is trying to behave like a partial Q where it wants to deal with future aspects of money and physicality. Generally, what happens is that these people will buy things normally for the wrong reason. Normally, there's a awkward kind of reason. You know, when the pandemic broke out and many people bought rolls and rolls of tissue paper, which was not really required, but the unnecessary panic which happened was so weird. So that is a very good example of a J going in the opposite direction. If you buy things out of a certain fear, which is illogical fear, then normally the J goes awkward. Okay. So the picture that is sent by one of the audience members here through my email is the exact explanation which I gave for letter D. So the formation which she is sent, with the person sent is he or she. is that the letter D is open. So when the letter D is open, it looks like CL, and CL is a different meaning compared to T. What does it mean when the I dot is to the right and it has a flick also? So if the I dot goes to the right, the mindfulness has got an aspect of the future, and if it is having a flick on top of it, then the future thought is annoying, it's irritating. Okay. Wow. Very interesting questions today. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to analyze not only writings but to understand how intelligent, what a lovely audience I've got. Because intelligence can be understood by the questions that are asked. So, because the questions are really interesting and really, really fun, I'm really thankful that I've got a very intelligent crowd around me. Okay. So, we've got another question here. What if the person's handwriting is very small? Now, if the person's handwriting is very small and it's very tiny, you have to check for two things. Is it legible or is it illegible? If it's legible, then you're safe. This person will use his extremely sharp mind, extremely particular mind to get work done in a very specific, very precise manner. But if you see that the person has a very small writing and it's illegible, then you have to be careful because then the person will use the eligibility for hiding some negative thing about them rather than just being frank and honest. Okay. Would your English handwriting change based on your native language? Wow, this is a very interesting question. Would your handwriting change based on your native language? Yes. Native language does have a different vibe in the mind when it has to express something. So generally, it all comes down to the language which you think in. Do you think in your mind with the English language or the Hindi language or whatever language you're familiar with? Let's say you know a couple of languages, but your mother tongue is English. So when you do graphotherapy, you'd see the maximum benefit or the maximum change in the English sample because your hand is set with the letter structures and the body language is very much set. But if you write another language which you know very well, but you've not written that language since years, so the body language is not going to be as smooth as the regularly used language. So graphotherapy affects no matter what the language is, but yes, native language has a slightly better advantage. A foreign language which you just learned or just have a slight knowledge about, that can have a different handwriting, slightly different handwriting based on your comfort with that other language. All right. So we've got just barely another 15 minutes to go. So please share your questions. If there are any more things you'd like me to answer. Okay. Next question is, when can a person, what did you say? Okay. When can a child start to learn graphology? Okay. So any child after the age of 7 can learn graphology, and in fact, it becomes a huge advantage if they learn at a young age so that they can use it as a life skill and understand their friends, understand their partners, understand their surroundings in a much more better manner. All right. Okay, so I shall take your leave today. I'm happy with the questions which have been asked, and please pile up more questions later on, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. We'll again meet next Wednesday with more questions, more answers, and more fun. All right. Thank you very much, and see you next time.